welcome to this session on the tales of the 5 inspiring women navigating today's life career in a minefield, the science-related career. Welcome to CILAC 2021. CILAC is the biggest scientific event in Latin America and the Caribbean, and we are very proud to count with you in this panel. We believe that part of CILAC's mandate is precisely to bring inspiring stories so that we can promote science careers in a young generation in our region. So thank you to all of you for sharing with us this moment, this panel. Welcome also to the participants of CILAC 2021. We are very happy that you have joined us. We have more than 3,000 participants in the forum, and that is the biggest forum ever. So we are very grateful to all the people that have contributed for CILAC 2021. And in that respect, allow me to start by thanking Aidan Willingham, that is the founder and the CEO of SciCom, Making Sense of Science. Aidan has been a great promoter of science dialogues, of science forums, and he has been always together with CILAC, making this forum one of the biggest in the world and definitely the biggest in our region. To say that I'm very privileged because it's rare to have 5 talented women in the same panel discussing, how do you go about in constructing a career related to science, and therefore it's really my pleasure to welcome Yoko Tsuda. She's a top Japanese scientific diplomat navigating the corridors of power and trade in Washington, D.C. So welcome, Yoko. We have also Anni Johansson, a former car company comms and a biobanking guru. And now she's directing a science communication at the Research Council in Estonia. Really welcome, Anni, to this panel. Christiane, Alan, welcome too. You are helping building perhaps the first globally significant science policy making network from Auckland. It's really a pleasure to welcome you here. We see life through the eyes and words of a South African award-winning journalist as the FT London and Wall Street Journal New York, Robin Bergström. Really, you are now communicating complex health issues for industry and the charity sector from Stockholm. So what a life. On the flip side, we meet Elena Mirinova, a Belarusian bench scientist researching autism and the brain, now throwing her entire team on COVID-19 pandemic responses from Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. We couldn't have a better team really to start this dialogue with all of you. So let me start by maybe asking a general question to each of you as you present yourselves from your own worlds. Maybe what did you end up doing or doing in your career now that requested personal and professional choices? When you introduce yourselves, talk about that. Talk how you initiate your careers and you had to make choices, both personal and professional choices. And maybe also through some examples of your greatest success in that journey that you are going in, but also some setbacks. What didn't work and made you yourself having to rethink those same choices. So maybe we start with you, Yoko.
Okay, thank you, Lydia. Hi, everyone. I'm Yoko Tsuda from Japan Science Technology Agency. It's called JST in acronym. So I'm now here in Washington, D.C. because JST has a branch office here. So this is the 3rd year in my life. I'm so excited to stay here every day. because the first 1 year, especially, it's difficult times, but I'm really enjoy life here in Washington, D.C. And first of all, thank you for having me at this interesting session. And actually, so my academia background is political science, not natural science. But now I'm working on JST, and JST is the most biggest funding agency under the Ministry of Science and Education in Japan. And we are supporting a lot of science from basic research to tech advanced. So it's so far from my initial career to the current career, totally different. The political science and natural science. But to be honest, it's very difficult for me to explain why I'm now here. Because sometimes it happen in my life as serendipities and good opportunity and good chance to with wonderful people. And some people advised me to work here and there. So of course I did. I chose my way. I take my option in my life, but sometimes very important to meet with someone. So I do treasure any encounter and any chance, because it won't never occur. So maybe that's the one of the answer where I'm not working now here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yoko. Anneli.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anneli, and I come from Estonia. I can also say that it's kind of difficult to explain how I ended up as a science communicator, because yeah, the coincidence plays a big role in life. So my job at the research agency today is where I have come through an exciting journey, I can say. So through my life as a woman, I found myself mainly working in a men's world. So being the first female car dealer in the 90s in Estonia, or working at the international security company G4S, surrounded only by male colleagues. Yeah, now it's nice to remember that I was the best car dealer in Baltic and Finland once. But also before my previous current work, I spent 13 years at the high-level research institution. So, but I also found myself in the biobank quite accident as well. So I, not knowing much about science that time. So biobank needed to build up the public trust and build up the recruitment procedures. Everything was set up, ready to receive samples, but there wasn't any people who just didn't show any interest to join. So when I first heard expressions like PCR or genotyping, it was like Chinese for me. But the more I realized that this whole project of the biobanking and its ideas and it was absolutely groundbreaking and eventually world changing, and I totally jumped in. So my Hercule Poirot stories on the nightstands were soon replaced with the double helix lecture, and now here I am. So now my passion is science communication, and I fight for the scientific views, and I help everything I can do. I help for researchers to explain their jobs.
Thank you very much, Anneli, and what a change of career. And indeed, science communication so important in our days. Christiane, I pass the floor to you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to be part of this panel. It's really so so exciting and interesting to hear everyone's stories. And like the others, I think I also share this kind of circuitous route to where I am now. I am a Canadian born in a small town in Northern Ontario. But I've since moved to a lot of places all over the world, and most recently have established ourselves and our family in New Zealand. We've been there since 2013, and on arrival, I started work with the Chief Science Advisor of New Zealand. And what brought us there, a lot of people ask this, and it really is partly serendipity, partly seizing opportunities. But in my experience, personally, it was also the back and forth sharing in a relationship, because my husband is also an academic. And so we, over the course of our early careers, we're both interested in opportunities overseas, and it was a lot of back and forth and compromise and negotiation. And as we put it back in the day, you know, we would take turns steering the ship. And so New Zealand was actually his turn to steer. I had left a career in the science funding system in Canada, so the science policy system in Canada, to allow my husband to have an opportunity to take a really a make or break opportunity in his career to move into an academic position that was on offer in New Zealand. And I said, okay, let's do that. I'll take my chance over there as well. And as it turned out, I was able to get a job that actually was equally as challenging and fulfilling for myself, which is why we stayed. And that doesn't always happen in relationships. There's usually one who it maybe is taking the lesser opportunity. Well, that wasn't the case for us, thankfully. And then from the Science Advisor's Office is where we launched INGSA, the International Network for Government Science Advice. And it's been all go from there, because what was recognized was that there was a huge sort of gap in the international discourse around what science advice looks like and can look like. And it turned out that my training as initially in anthropology actually really paid off in this very work, because it is work that is less about the technical aspects of science and more about the culture of science and the culture of discussion and the culture of understanding how questions are posed. So I find that even though I am very far away from my academic training now, I actually apply it daily, and I'm very thankful for that sort of social science and humanities background that I have.
Thank you very much, Christiane. And indeed, we work together to create INGSA, and we continue building the relationship with INGSA. And in fact, in CILAC, we have several sessions, you know, organized with INGSA. So really great to have you here. And I think you brought an aspect of the journey that is precisely the balance between family and personal life and career-wise decisions. And I think that's something that all face, but women in particular have to face it maybe in a deeper way. And with that, I pass to you, Lena, that went from Belarus to Baltimore, and it would be great to hear your story.
Yeah, hello everyone, and also thank you for having me here. My name is Elena Mirinova, and yeah, as Lydia said, I was moving around the globe also choosing this letter B for some reason. So I come from Belarus through Berlin to Baltimore, and through all my moves and choices, I made a lot of choices, but also compromises. And how I end up here contributes not only my active choice, but also probably to back then I was thinking it's a compromise, but here I am, and I'm totally happy where I am. And if somebody would tell me to me, 17-year-old who decided to study biology and environmental medicine, oh, you will end up in Johns Hopkins, #1 school of public health. I was like, no, it's not possible. I'm in Soviet Union girl, with closed borders. But things are changing. And when I was studying, it was very clear to me that I cannot stay home, unfortunately, because I wanted to be a scientist. I want to do science and lab work, and the opportunities in Belarus until now, unfortunately, are very limited. So I started to learn German when I was in third year of my undergrad, and I was looking to move to Germany speaking country because it was close to my mom still, but with a country with great opportunities. So that's how I ended up in Berlin. And I was doing my PhD at Charité University Clinic and Freie University, where I got my PhD eventually. And I was doing neuroscience and looking into really, again, and this was my choice was go to Germany, but the lab I end up, or my research topic I end up doing was not my choice. Yeah, so I was assigned that, and I was so grateful that it happened. I was studying microRNAs, which were just discovered that year, and it was so much new things around, and it was so hot topic. And when I was done with my PhD, by the end of my PhD, I got my first child, and then was the first compromise I made. I turned down a very exciting job in microRNA in Denmark because I didn't want to leave Berlin, and I didn't want to have a far distance relationship away from my child. So I decided to go to a government position, and I was thinking it will be more family friendly environment to me, quiet place. But doing this compromise, and probably back then I was thinking it's setback, but in the end it wasn't. Although the project I was working at, this is again setback probably, was led by all male environment, and I was doing the work, but it was, for example, never published, and I was very disappointed about that. But I had my side projects and microRNAs which I can pursue, which was published, and in the end I applied for a position here at Hopkins, and I got it. And this is a coincidence probably again, because I'm working at Center for Alternative to Animal Testing here at Hopkins, developing new approach methodologies to replace animal testing and toxicology, and also in pharmaceutical industry in general in science. But this is exactly what I was doing back then in Berlin as a postdoc. So if I wouldn't choose this government institute to slow down because of the child, I will never end up in this great place I am right now. Yeah, this is probably what I want to say. And about greatest success, I think you do a lot of successes during your life, and at the moment you think this is the greatest success, but then you move on, and then the next success comes and says, oh, okay, this was not so great, but this now it's very great success. So therefore I will say the very last one, what happened to a year ago, 2019, APA announced, US Environmental Protection Agency announced that they would like to reduce animal testing and remove any animal testing by 2035, and then announced the grants, also opportunities to support this research. And I was so privileged to be one of the researchers who received this grant from APA to work on that. And this was probably for me, for now, the biggest recognition of what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lena. And again, I think you framed quite well the different choices in the countries, and also a strategy to move into the field that you wanted to pursue. And really wonderful to have you here. And Rupini, you also have been moving quite around and in different countries, and always with the science communication at your heart. So tell us your story.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here with you too, Lydia, because we both share a common continent at the very least, and we're neighbors. You know, I'm South African, you Mozambican, and I've been lucky enough, at least on one occasion, to meet Yoko as well, who did some very, very important work in South Africa while I was there. But listening to everybody else's stories, it's also dissimilar from mine. I've heard at least 2 scientists who are pure science, and others who came in kind of accidentally, and I'm one of those people too. I came into science quite accidentally. I've also been, I mainly came in from politics. I graduated as a politics journalist in South Africa at exactly the time that we were making a new government. We were going away from many, many years of apartheid and creating something new. Had been something that removed us from, as a country, from all kinds of international dialogue. And that included academia, it included science, it included business, included everything like that. And I happened to be there at university as a journalist on the first occasion that they had the first exchange program that they had between a foreign university and a South African one after apartheid. And that's where I got to meet my husband, who was a science, actually, exchange student at university. And that's how I got to get involved into that whole area of academia and science as a journalist. And of course, I got out of it, and I did a lot of other things in between, and I became a business journalist and all of that. But what brought me back was actually a personal experience, with a health issue that I had myself. I'm sure lots of people know that journalists end up being quite big smokers during their lifespan. We smoked in the newsroom, we did all of these kinds of things. And at a certain point in time, legislation was being made, very rightly so, to curb people from smoking in public places. I was a journalist back then and a very, very heavy smoker. And I had to give it up, overnight. And then I learned about, other options that you had in pharmaceutical industry, in the tobacco industry, in pure consumer goods. And I had to throw myself behind it to understand scientifically, are these things good? Are they bad? As a journalist, how do I put them forward? What role do I play in society? And at the same time, you're actually battling situations where do I live continentally right now? I'm supposed to move from Africa to Sweden, right? I'm supposed to learn the language there, become a journalist there, and then afterwards create also a career that you're not only interested in just to make money out of, but to actually make a difference in, and it was during that time with, very, very good international news organizations that actually taught me to really value how you ask questions, what actually is important, and how you put them forward, And I can't say that as a woman, it's been always easy in every enterprise, but I think along the way, if we tell our stories strongly enough and in a way that everyone internally in an organization can understand you and understand where you want to go with your story as a journalist and who you want to interview and who you want to talk to in society, I think you do get a listening to. You do, in all organizations.
Thank you very much, and also for bringing that hope that things are changing. And maybe because we have 20 minutes to continue this conversation, let me throw again a common question to all of you. We talked about successes, choices, and what it means when you have to do those choices. And maybe I go reverse now and start with you, Rupini, because you are right on my screen. And really, if you could pinpoint something that is changing for the positive in the sense of bringing more women to science-related careers, and then we can explore from there.
I think it's very, very difficult. I've worked in a lot of organizations that are not science-based organizations, but actually rely a lot upon scientific individuals in those organizations to actually be able to distill the science. And what has happened over the years in these organizations, both in the media, whether it's a news organization, all of us, we have amazing science departments at Reuters, at the Wall Street Journal, even every single mainstay organization has an incredible interest in science because it is at the bottom of everything, right? But our own understanding of science from an outside perspective makes it very, very difficult. And our attitudes as women in business, if I can talk to you, just, if I look at what I've seen from news organization to news organization, having worked also for the tobacco industry in the science field in the tobacco industry, which is not an easy place to work, I'm sure you can understand. And then moving on to NGOs and working with pandemics and emergency response with doctors and pharmacists and all of that. Women always seem to play the best role in the service towards the front face of the public sphere. Where in all of these positions, when women are actually sitting in the boardroom, with all the people who are decision-making powers, when it comes to how our science gets seen afterwards, how the economies of scale are going to work, what is going to happen with revenue generation, our shareholders, how everyone else is going to see it. There are very, very few women who are sitting around the table making these decisions together with their male counterparts. At the very most, what I've seen is maybe 30%, if we're actually lucky. And often they're in very, very soft positions. They are in the PR positions, they're very often in a CFO, the financial positions in a company, or anywhere else. And they're very often the last person that you would call in, when you're having to make that final decision of how you're going to actually deal with something. They're very often the last person you call into the boardroom with your last two mates to say, how do we go on this particular deal? They're very often the last ones that you call in, right? Yeah. But they're the first ones that you would go to afterwards and say, hey, you know what, I made this decision. What do you think? Yeah. Because you're going to be the PR person or the legal counsel or the soft lady in HR that's going to have to go down to everybody else and give the message,
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
that is what I have experienced.
Yeah. So a lot of ground to open up, and with that, I go to you, Lena. As I said, I'm going in reverse. Do you see changes for the better?
I see a lot of changes. In the last 20 years that I have worked in many industries, and I've not worked in science, all of that, all of my interface with science has been accidental, but it has been because I asked for it. I was a journalist that got turned over from becoming a smoker into something else, and I wanted to understand what goes behind this? Why is this happening to me? Why do I feel so much better? I investigated it myself, and that is why I came to the conclusions, and they were political conclusions. They were not actually scientific conclusions, because everything that we talk about science today, it feels like to me as a journalist, is an over inundation of information, and we don't know where to look for it. We don't know who is right and who is wrong. And, when it comes to women in science, what I've noticed in all the enterprises that I have worked in is that the women that I've worked in really focus on what are the real issues that we need to design today for society, and how do we need to communicate it to the mothers out there, because they understand that mothers are able to actually pass on the message and actually do the research that they need to do to take care of their children, And then when you talk about it internally in an organization that's extremely male dominated, it's almost like you need to get all the people that work in reception to do like a show. And it worked in South Africa. You could do these kinds of things in South Africa where people really loved, community involvement to make something happen. But in places like, the Western world, it would have to be like, some kind of social media enterprise with a Greta Thunberg coming and telling everybody how wrong they are, But in South Africa, it would take a very, very different sort of, how we put things across to other people is so different because of where we come from and what we learn. you know. But what I do know about African women, and I'm over talking now, but we're gonna get edited.
But I think you brought a quite interesting point, Rupini, that maybe the others will pick it up, and because also you come from different parts of the world, the cultural issue in some of the barriers, but also some of the solutions. So Lena, I pass to you now, and thanks, Rupini. I will pass to Lena now.
Okay.
To hear from her.
I'm sorry for taking so much time, ladies.
It's fine. We are fine. Thank you. Thank you. Lena?
Yes. So what I see the changes. Yes, I do, and I'm sorry if you hear the noise, the mowing grasses around me. Yes, I see the changes where I'm right now, and of course the changes are not proportional, equally distributed between different countries, obviously. But what I see, people I'm surrounded by, I see that the 21st century is for us, for women, and this is it's our century, and we will prove that that we are the strong guys also. And what I think what near future will bring us, or what I'm looking for, it's recognition will come, or your top job will come to the best person who is engaged, who is smart, who is ambitious, regardless of this person, gender or race or heritage. That for now, what we need to do as a society to give this equal opportunities to everyone, again, regardless of gender, race, and heritage, to get this opportunity and resources to be in an equal position, to get this top position, or to get this recognition the same way. And this is I think where we're moving at. So I'm really looking forward to the time where the job application will not have a sentence where we prefer women over men. It should be automatically just equal.
Thank you very much. And I think you pinpoint something that is structural. If women don't have the same opportunities since they are children, in order to develop, their interests in science-related careers, then of course they will be structurally discriminated, and you eliminate many of the possible scientists because they just didn't have the chance to even having science subjects in primary and in secondary. So I think your point there, it's quite well taken. And maybe on that, Christiane, also from your experience, but also from all the work that INCSA is doing on science diplomacy and science advice, how the gender issue is been permeating these kinds of dialogues and public policies that could help us to have a better future.
Thank you. Yes. And I really appreciate your picking up on this structural problem, because that was exactly what I was thinking about pointing out from my experience and from INCSA's work as well. So what are the changes I'm seeing? What are the positive changes? Well, certainly I am seeing political will to change, which has been a struggle in the past, but we're starting to see it with a discourse around, what's been called variously, EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion, especially in the sciences and in science policy. So I think that the discourse has started thanks to, a lot of feminist scholarship over the years, a lot of activism over the years. That discourse is there, but, there's still a leap from moving from the political will and the discourse to the structural issues. So I'll give you just one example from, establishing a panel of science advisors, where it had been difficult, even though there was an EDI statement, and it wasn't about we prefer women candidates or minority candidates, but it had nothing to do with that. It was just saying, we promote principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Fine. And yet the panel was still filling up with male candidates. And the question was, well, why? And the answer was, well, we're not seeing women applying. you know, they're not applying for these leadership jobs. And my response was, well, let's think about why not. Let's think about the structural barriers that even though the door is wide open, what are the barriers to making that choice? And the structural barriers were, well, sure, lack of mentorship, lack of peers, lack of colleagues, you know, and that's a self-fulfilling thing. But there was also structural barriers around the fact that women applying for science advisory roles were having to make a very difficult choice that was actually not a very attractive choice career-wise for them, because they, you know, were already having to fulfill all sorts of performance indicators in their academic jobs that were so demanding and already taking them away from, you know, other responsibilities that they have piled up in I should say we have piled up in our lives. So this was really interesting to me to start to analyze not just the fact that this equity, diversity, and inclusion discourse is there, which is a good thing, but what is the leap that we take from having that political will to actually implementing it and getting over those structural barriers that really constrain choices for women in practice. And that is something that we're still working through and thinking through. But the more we can discuss it, the better, because I think that it's not until you have women pointing out that choices are actually constrained in practice that it's actually realized that people understand this. When you have a panel or a group of men who are looking at something from a position of historical privilege, they won't see it. So it's up to us to point it out. So that's why this is a great opportunity. And thank you.
Thank you, Christiane. Annelie, you also changed careers, and you are now in a career related to science on communication and dealing day to day with researchers. So in your view, and from that point of view, do you see, you know, hope when we talk about the chances of a female scientist to really gain the space that she deserves, or the old barriers are still there? So just a thoughts from you.
So I just saw the results of the recent study which monitored situation of the gender equality of the Estonian research landscape. And for example, 2020, only 24% of professors and more than 70% of teachers and assistants were women. Mm-hmm. And the rule still applies. The lower the grade, the higher the proportion of women. So the reasons might be differently, but actually the biggest factors hindering the development of academic career is career breaks, which affect women the most. Mm-hmm. And I also know top researchers from my biobanking days, and actually I can say that this network of the family is extremely important. So if the women can't take break from your work, it's really important if you have this husbands and grandparents and supportive colleagues, mm-hmm. and etc. But there is definitely hope, because in Estonia, for example, first time in history we have female president and female prime minister. So, and also, yes, leading professors and researchers who are really strong women, and there is hope.
Thank you very much, Annelie. Lena said that this century is a female century, or the century for women. So your country is showing that too. So congratulations also for that incredible example. Yoko, you come also from a country where there are a lot of barriers, and Annelie spoke about family, about social constraints, and but here you are doing and following a science career, and representing your agency. So tell us how you see the changes, if there is hope there, or if there are still barriers that that we need to continue to fight.
Thank you, Lydia. I'm happy to talk about everything. So actually, I'm working in only 3 places so far, and Tokyo, Moscow, and Washington, D.C. It's so limited experience, but so, those cities are so big. So this city is enriching my perspectives, vision, not only personal, but also in career promotion. So when I worked in Tokyo, I didn't recognize such a kind of barriers, discrimination against women, because I'm so lucky. So I'm so conscienceless. So this now I'm questioning at the time. But anyway, so I'm different, working in different cities and different working with different person from different background, cultural perspective. So I'm getting learned. Oh wow! So there is so many problems in the world and against women and diversity and career promotion and gender equality. So to be honest, of course, Japanese society is still lagging behind compared to other societies. So because it's my personal opinion, because male dominance still existing. So women career promotion sometimes very difficult because it's terms of structural and cultural point of view, but progress is ongoing. Of course, not high speed, but a little bit. We are gradually changing. So first of all, the most importantly, women like me themselves have to recognize what is the problem, what we should change our future. So in that context, I am cautiously optimistic about women career promotion in the world, not including Japan, but around the world. Okay, so of course I know, so pregnancy or childcare, especially women has in his life, like Lena, so sometimes we have to be compromised in career promotion, but I think it's a good momentum where we can consider their future career promotion seriously. I think so. So maybe I might be a little bit optimistic, but it's true. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yoko. We are at the end of the 45 minutes. It does pass very rapidly. Thank you very much for being in this panel. Thank you to the participants that are listening to you. And what came out, I think, it's something that women are in science, and the opportunities are there, but there are barriers. Some of them structural, that we need to continue to fight. And we, as women in science, have a role to play and have a responsibility. And I'm really grateful to all of you for taking up that responsibility and sharing with all of us your stories, your journeys, and more than anything, your passion for science, for women, and for development. Thank you very much to all of you.